This is the exhaust system off of my 1994 Mazda B3000 pickup, and you can see I'm replacing the catalytic converter, and I'm going to replace both of the oxygen sensors. It didn't pass smog this last time, and it's not burning oil, it's not throwing any trouble codes, but it's got about 220,000 miles on the truck, so I figure this catalytic converter and the oxygen sensor should clear that up, and I should pass smog no problem once I get this replaced. And you can see here I've taken the Y pipe out of the truck. That's probably the easiest way, and even still I had to cut the bolts. Had to use a 4-inch grinder to get the bolts off the back. They were completely rusted, and I'm going to use a 4-inch grinder to get the bolts off the front also, to get that converter and bolt the new one on. And clearly at this point it's going to be a lot easier to get the oxygen sensors out of that thing and put those back in. And you can see there where I had to cut the bolts off the back. I used, like I say, a 4-inch grinder. There's probably a dozen different ways to get that thing off of there, but it was good and rusted, so the 4-inch grinder took me 5 minutes to do it. And you can see over there, the new one, I've already replaced the flange on the back. If you replace it, you're probably going to have to get one of those, about $8 at AutoZone. And that's the ratchet setup I used to get the exhaust header bolts out, and they are 15 millimeter. You can actually see the threads from the engine bay, and you can spray those pretty good with WD-40 or something before you try to take them out. But they didn't, I was really figuring these were going to be a bear to get out. They weren't too bad though, they come out pretty easy. This is the middle cross member from underneath the truck. I had to remove that to get the exhaust out. And those are all captive bolts with an 18 millimeter nuts. There's two on the frame, 2 in the middle where the transmission mounts up, and then 1 on the other side. So there's actually a total of 5. And took a little bit of pressure to get those off, but there may be a way to get the exhaust out without taking this thing out, but it's a whole lot easier to just take the cross member out. And to get this thing out completely, once I got all the bolts undone, I had to actually take a floor jack and then jack up the transmission a little bit to get those bolts out. But didn't take long, about 10 minutes. And this converter is a California compliant. If you live in California, you got to get the right catalytic converter. And this is a Walker 80690 going on this truck. This is a direct fit. I just have to bolt it in. Of course, I'm still going to have to take these other bolts off. Probably with I'm going to have to use that 4-inch grinder to do that. The converter, I got it on eBay for about $260 with free shipping. AutoZone wanted $320. Not cheap, but. And you can see the converter itself. The new one does not have the hanger on it like the old one did, so I'll probably put it in there without the hanger to begin with, and if it rattles or something, I'll get a strap and put on it and hook it back up. And the oxygen sensors, they were kind of a pain in the butt to get them unplugged. They took me a while to even find the plugs. Actually, they're right behind the distributor. There's one on the left side and one on the right side of the distributor, and you can just barely get one hand back in there. So they're kind of tricky to get out of there. But once you get the whole thing out, it's a little easier to get those oxygen sensors out and replace them. The one on the passenger side, the driver's side oxygen sensor, that's not too bad. If it's up in the truck, you can actually get to it. The passenger side one, though, that's a little bit tricky. And you can see there, I actually got the thing off without cutting the bolts. I just took it off with the ratchet. Of course, being out of the truck, I could get lots of leverage on the thing, and it took quite a bit of force to get those nuts off. They didn't just come right off. In fact, that one, you can see I almost twisted it completely in half. And to do that in the truck would have been near impossible to get those things, because those 2 top bolts are pressed right up against the floor pan practically. The gasket looks okay. I think I can reuse that. I think I can and reuse that gasket, it looks okay. So bolt the new one on and put it back in there. Okay, I encountered a small problem here when trying to put the Y pipe onto the new converter. As you can see, the old converter was pretty deep, and then the new one isn't. And it's got this thing that sticks off the end that goes into the converter, so I'm going to cut about 1 inch off, and it should fit in there okay. Everything else lines up, all the bowl holes and everything. I just got to cut about 1 inch off of that thing. Okay, so I cut part of it off the end, so now it should fit into that hole and bolt up just fine. Well, there it is. The brand new one's bolted onto the Y pipe now. Now the bolts on the stock converter are captive, so I don't think you can pound you might be able to pound them out, but anyways, I just bought, what I did was I bought brand new. Those are 3/8 bolts, and they're about 2 inches long. And I've actually got new bolts for the back too, because I had to cut those off. So those are a 3" by 3/8. And these are both of the smog tests that I took. The one on top is the one that I failed, and the one on the bottom is the new one. And you can see from the top one, the HC parts per million has a maximum of 85, and I measured at 95, which failed me. And then right below it, you can see that it went from 95 down to 28. And that's the 15 mile per hour on top and the 25 mile per hour on the bottom. And it reduced the 25 mile per hour down by about half, and it reduced the 15 mile per hour by about 2/3, which is pretty good. And that's all I did was change the 2 oxygen sensors and that converter, and it brought the others down. So you brought it down to 0.01. I don't know how it even measured that, but and then the others brought. But yeah, there you go. So I'm good to go for at least another few years, hopefully. Truck's got over 200,000 miles on it, and that original, that catalytic converter I took off was the original. It was marked Ford, and the oxygen sensors, I think those were the original too. So it's been running with that stuff since '94. Another thing that I noticed is that with a new converter on there, it seems to have more power and definitely better throttle response. When I got the new converter, I held it up and tried to look through it, and you could see light through it. The old converter, when I took it off, I pointed it towards the sun, and you couldn't see nothing. It was pitch black inside. So this should clear up. It obviously cleared up the problem on the smog test. So if you got a car that's not throwing a bunch of trouble codes, and it's not burning oil, and it's got, you know, a few 100,000 miles on it, all total I got probably $300 tied up in it, and hopefully it'll go for several more years like that. Thanks for watching. If you got any questions, just leave them in the comment section.